Also, wir sind hier mit Kathrine Switzer, einer der Pionieren der Frauenlaufbewegung. Ms. Switzer, first question is a bit the tragic incident happened last week in Boston, and your name is tied to the Boston Marathon for about like 40 years now.
46.
46 years. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
46 years.
A long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. So you were there again this year.
Yes.
So tell me your thought on this.
Well, you know, I do have this very long history with the Boston Marathon, 46 years. I've run it for 8 years. And then after that, I had the opportunity to begin to television broadcasting of the race. And I have broadcast every televised edition of the Boston Marathon. So this year was my 36th year. And we were, as usual, on the finish line, on the photo bridge. There, you know, high up above, watching the runners come toward us. And we'd called, you know, it was a 5-hour telecast, and we called the men's race, the women's race, the wheelchair races, and then we did a lot of the people's race. And we finished our broadcast. I said goodbye to my colleagues. We agreed to meet in the press room where we were going to carry on the broadcast at the prize giving. I went back to my room in the hotel, which is only 100 meters away, and the bomb went off. So, you know, it was only about 20 minutes afterwards. And of course, you know, there was nothing I could do because our hotel went into lockdown. And, you know, it was such a terrible, terrible thing. Always when terrorism takes place on a holy altar like sports, like it did in 1972 in Munich, it is devastating. And so for Boston, which is such an integral part of my life, to have that happen was devastating. But it also makes me feel very, very resolute, you know, absolutely determined to continue running more than ever. And all the runners feel the same way. Because running makes us fearless, and that's why we do it. And so I don't think there's a runner right now that is afraid at all. And if the Boston Marathon were held tomorrow, 1 million people would be there. And next year, 2 million people will be there.
Tell me a little about the atmosphere in Boston after this, or the atmosphere within the runner scene.
Yes, well, I must say, first of all, I didn't see any of the bomb victims, but I saw people running through the streets, and of course the running community came together immediately, but there was panic, sort of, and mayhem in the streets because people were looking for people they were waiting for. Like right out of my window, normally everybody's there with their cell phones and their blankets and they're holding up their medals. And then the police came rushing in and got everybody out. And it was a matter of people being so afraid that their family members or friends were finishing, or family members and friends were terrified that the people were right along the start line. I mean, finish line, right along that area. So that was a bad scene. But after many hours of cell phones and people connecting, they found each other, and it all worked out all right. You know, naturally, everybody is very, very sad for the people you know who got hurt or killed. But actually, I believe none of them were actually runners in the race, which was really quite amazing. But we have to resolve this, and of course it's changing our sport. This is very hard on race directors because they have a security issue, but runners are more resolute than ever.
So like 1967, you were the first woman who ran the Boston Marathon.
I was the first woman. No, I was the first woman to officially. Yes, that's right. A woman ran the year before I did. She ran well, but the controversy was because I signed up for the race and received a bib number, and I got that bib number because I signed my name with my initials. So I signed up as K.V. Switzer, not Kathrine, and officials obviously thought that I was a man and gave me the number. I wasn't trying to fool them. I signed my name KV Switzer for two reasons. One, because my name Kathrine was misspelled on my birth certificate, and it's always been.
There's the E missing.
Is it E missing?
Yeah, there's E missing.
You see, it's an E missing, and everybody.
Where's the E?
Well, my father filled out the form, and he was really excited, and he was a bad speller, and so it was. And you know, by the time I was 12, I was really tired of always having my name misspelled, and still today it's always misspelled.
Yeah.
Okay. The other reason is when about 12 or 13, I started to run, and I wanted to be a sports journalist.
Uh-huh.
And I was writing sports for my high school newspaper. And who was I reading and who did I love? I loved J.D. Salinger and E.E. Cummings and W.B. Yeats and T.S. Eliot. And I thought, well, all great writers sign their name with their initials.
Oh, wow.
So
your story began. You take us back a little bit. I mean, you told the story a million times before, but it's a good story. So please take us back. You sign. So you inscribe to the race. You run with your trainer, with your boyfriend,
and my
boyfriend, who's a American football player at that time. And then what happened?
What happened is my coach picked up our numbers at the start of the race because it was snowing and sleeting. It was terrible weather. And another coincidence was I was wearing a baggy sweatsuit because it was so cold, and I was so upset because I had on a very nice looking shorts and top. You know, I wasn't there to make a political statement, but I really was very proud of being a woman and very proud of being able to run the distance. And I had done the distance in practice, so I knew I could do it. And so this was a big reward for me. So here I was in this baggy sweatsuit. It was freezing cold. My coach came out with our numbers. We pinned our numbers on. We warmed up together, and we went into the starting area. It was at about 4 kilometers that the press truck went by. The race director saw I was in his race wearing numbers, and he jumped off the bus and he grabbed me and he threw me back and he said, "Get out of my race and give me those numbers," and tried to pull my numbers off. So my boyfriend hit the official, pow, and sent him out of the race, and I went on and finished. And it was a scary thing at the time, but to tell it now, everybody laughs. It's so funny. We can't even imagine it. But it really was the moment that not only changed my life, but it changed women's running history.
Do you still have numbers?
I still have those numbers,
and
I'll tell you something. They're in a frame in my study.
Oh, okay.
But but if a house catches on fire, it's the first thing I'm grabbing.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Promise.
Let me tell you an interesting thing, though.
Okay.
All these years later, that number 261 has come to mean fearless.
Oh, really?
Yes, and among women especially, it's like a cult number, and these women are putting 261 on their arm, or they're getting tattooed. And we're making jewelry and things that say 261, but more importantly, it's becoming a number that means I can communicate with you, and we can be fearless together, and you're not afraid because you're 261 woman. 261 fearless.
261.
Yeah, my friend Edith Zuschmann in Austria has already started a 261 club about women who train together and they get brave together.
That's great.
Well, running is empowering and makes you fearless.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that, men and women, but women especially. Yeah. And many women are living in fearful situations.
That's right.
So to have somebody out there who's thinking of them, is very important.
So at the race director, he tried to push you off the race, obviously, and he got himself pushed out of the way by your boyfriend.
Yep.
Did he ever apologize to you?
No, he didn't. And for 5 years, we were like this with each other. But in the 6th year, he had to admit us into the Boston Marathon. Yeah. And
he was still at the job.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah. And at the start of the race, he came up to me and he gave me a big kiss on my cheek and turned me to the TV cameras. And he was Scots. And he said, "Come on, lass, let's get a wee bit of notoriety." And it was his way of saying he's sorry. We became, so
he kind of said sorry in his way.
In his way. And we became good friends. We became good friends.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I was actually with him just a few hours before he died.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had to be with him because... he changed my life completely. I'd love our listeners to always remember that sometimes the bad things in your life that happen to you, if you turn them around and look at them another way, if you make them a good thing, it can change the world. And actually can be a very amazing legacy.
So, but it took the Boston Marathon 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, and the Olympic Committee like almost 20 years.
No, but that's fast for the Olympic
It's
Committee.
fast.
Fast for the Olympic
okay.
Committee moves very slowly. So after becoming official in 1972, we began the campaign to get the women's marathon in the Olympics, and we succeeded by 1984.
Yeah.
That's very fast.
That's fast.
It was
for
huge.
You. Okay.
We went from 800 meters, practically to a marathon. It was amazing.
So, but for our listeners and for our viewers now, like 40 years, 50 years later, we can't imagine why in the world would anybody prevent women from running.
No.
For running a marathon.
I know.
Why? I mean,
Isn't it amazing?
Can you explain?
Yes, because, this race director was protecting his Boston Marathon. He thought I was a clown. He thought I wasn't serious. And my coach was screaming at him, "Leave her alone, she's serious, I've trained her." And after that, he didn't believe that. Like many people, he didn't believe a woman could be serious. And he didn't believe it was appropriate. And he didn't believe that women couldn't do it without damaging themselves. These were the myths that existed, and they were very strong and powerful myths, and they were believed mostly by women, because women themselves were their own worst enemies in many ways, because they didn't believe in their own capability. And that's why now running is so critically important for women, because they are so empowered by the experience that they realize they can do anything. Because if you can run a marathon, you can do anything. Yeah. And it's changing the whole social fabric of the world. It really is.
But do women run differently from men?
Yeah, what's interesting, yes, we do. And we're only beginning to explore what women's capabilities are. We know physiologically that women actually have better endurance and stamina than men. We'll never be as fast or as powerful or as strong. But we also have more balance and more flexibility. Here's the difference. Men have had sports for 2,500 years. Women have only had sport for about 50. And we're just now beginning to see when races are more than 100 kilometers, when races are 6 days long, 24-hour runs, cold, deprivation, sleep deprivation events, that's when women are going to be winning. And actually what's even better is we're going to be working as teams, where the men's strength and power works with the women's flexibility, balance, and stamina.
So there's a lot more to come for women and for running in general.
Yes, and I think all of our viewers and listeners should realize that they're part of this revolution that's making these changes happen.
Wow, and you started the revolution.
Well, I helped.
Kind of.
Kind of.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.